Soulwidth Podcast, Episode 1, The Power of Meditation with Alexander Moller. In the very first episode of the Soulwidth Podcast, I sit down with Alexander Moller, the founder and meditation coach of Enso Meditation, to explore the transformative power of meditation. We discuss how meditation can help manage anxiety, embrace impermanence, and foster self-discovery. Our conversation also delves into practical tools such as gratitude and journaling, emphasizing the importance of presence in everyday life. Alex shares the philosophy behind Enso meditation, the significance of a proactive mindset, and his future aspirations in the field of meditation coaching. What is Soulwidth? Soulwidth has been a passion project of mine for almost a year now. It's a brand dedicated to holistic well-being, encompassing movement and education through reading, podcasting, and insightful website articles. Our podcast format will feature a mix of expert interviews with meditation teachers, authors, scientists, and health professionals. Book reviews offering deep dives into transformative literature, soul sessions, personal reflections and discussions on mindfulness, self-growth, and well-being. Where to listen? For this first episode, we're keeping it audio only. You can listen on YouTube, the Soulwidth website, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, or any of our social media platforms. Video content is in the works, so stay tuned.
My friend Alex, how are we today?
Good, thanks. Good. Thanks for having me on.
That's all right.
Absolute honor.
Thank you for making the trek all the way down to the ocean here, and hopefully, it looks clouds are here for you. But as we know, as meditation teaches us, the blue sky is always there.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about that saying?
I haven't heard of that specific saying, no, but I understand the philosophy behind it.
Yeah. So tell us about your business.
Yeah.
What you do. How have you been able to make meditation something that you do daily, something that you have turned into your career?
Right. So I teach meditation. I bring meditation to people's workplaces, to people's day-to-day lives, aged care homes, to schools, athletes, everywhere. And I run workshops all around Melbourne as well. So meditation's a big part of my life, and it became a big part of my life out of necessity, not out of me pursuing it from a curious standpoint. I genuinely needed it. I was going through a period of intense paralyzing anxiety, and nothing seemed to help. And what did seem to help also came with ramifications, consequences, in the sense that I would feel less anxious, but it would also detach me from the people in my life, and it would, have side effects. And, I thought I'd give something natural a try, and I thought, let's try meditation. I've heard so much about it. I tried it as a kid here and there, tried it at acting classes with you, but I never actually delved into it. And trying it, I put myself through a 30-day challenge, and I thought, let's just try it for 30 days. I threw myself into the deep end. I thought, well, we'll do an hour a day. I wouldn't recommend your listeners do that, but I did it anyway. Put it up on YouTube. And, initially it was just meant to be a challenge, but it turned out to be life-changing. By the end of the 30 days, I felt like a new person.
So you were doing an hour a day for 30 days?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was challenging. Well, I didn't do 1 hour in one go, but I split it into, when I first began, 10-minute slots here and there, and then eventually 30. And every now and then I'll try an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed with that. I have a friend who first got me into the thought of meditating, and he would do 2 hours of sitting a day. And for me, that was mind-boggling because, I was the person who could barely sit for a minute. And before I knew you, we met at an acting class. And there is an exercise that we used to do, something similar, but more to do with acting than to do with meditation. However, it still had the aspect of sitting still.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly difficult for me. It was an aspect of I wanted to move. It was an aspect of I didn't want to be in my brain. It was an aspect of also just sitting there, being a person with, ADHD, and I used to have a painful back. And it was one of the biggest challenges that I had. I remember that I used to get so frustrated because if I was meditating and I got interrupted, I had a family and kids and things like that. I used to get so frustrated because I would be interrupted while meditating. And that doesn't make sense within itself, does it? Because if you're meditating and you're supposed to be in a space, someone interrupts you and you get upset with them, for me, I didn't realize the connection until a few years later that I realized that I'm supposed to be meditating. So if I'm meditating and then someone interrupts it and I get angry at them, then I don't think I'm doing this for the right reasons in a sense, it just didn't make sense.
Can I explain why you're feeling this way?
Yeah, can you? Because I can't.
Yeah, right. So you're feeling this way because you had a set of expectations.
Exactly.
And one of the things I teach my students is that when they start meditating, even before they begin closing their eyes, do not walk into this meditation with any expectations. You cannot expect to achieve a certain outcome while meditating because circumstances are not always ideal. Things aren't always going to fall into place the way we'd like to. For example, when I began meditating, I would get frustrated because there were construction workers next door and I'm trying to get into this Zen space and they're just working. I could hear them talking. And then I had a housemate at the time who kept watching his YouTube videos and laughing. So I could hear that from the other room. So everything was frustrating me. But you know what? At the end of the day, it shouldn't, because meditation teaches you to work with what you have and not to expect an outcome. You see, we have this misconception that when we start meditating, we're expecting to feel, Zen-like by the end of it. But that's not necessarily the only outcome that you may feel from meditating. You may feel more creative. You may feel more energetic, more motivated. You may even feel sad or amused. You can't predict how you will feel by the end of the meditation, which is why you don't set those expectations. Stepping into a meditation, expecting or putting that pressure on yourself to feel Zen, in my opinion, is not it puts a lot of pressure on you and you're not going to get the most out of the meditation.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself and I was actually having these expectations of, I guess, thinking that doing this exercise would assist with some sort of transformation or some sort of change, or that I had to change. But the reality was I didn't really have to change. I just really had to be seeping more into myself, to be more of a person who was, I guess, on brand with being Luke, on brand with being that person that, you have known me as the person that is outside in that world, but coming to be in a house and every day, seeing someone every day in work environment, that person shouldn't alter, shouldn't switch too much. I felt like I needed to have some sort of version of me that was a better version of being at home and being at work. But that's not what it's used for, is it?
No, it's not used to achieve a certain version or anything like that. It's actually used to bring out your authentic self and handle circumstances as you without having to change anything about yourself. So I think that's one of the things I love about meditation is it's all about learning how to be more adaptable and be more flexible. Of course, we have different layers and colors that you'll act differently around your best mates as you would around your family, right? Like we have different versions, but overall, you are yourself. People can identify your personality. And meditation just accentuates that. It brings that out in you because you feel more, you learn more about yourself. You understand yourself better, which is why meditation can be a very confronting experience for a lot of people because we don't often close our eyes and just confront our thoughts or just give that time to just group our thoughts.
Let me just ask you here, what's the power in confronting your thoughts?
The power is that's a good question. So here's the thing, when you're meditating, one of the misconceptions and one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they think that if they're thinking a lot during the meditation, they're actually failing as meditators. And that's a huge, huge misconception because thinking is a part of life. It's our natural state. It's not our natural state to not think. It's our natural state to think. The average human will have about 70,000 thoughts a day. believe it or not. And half the time we're thinking about the same thing. So it's normal for us to think, right? So what meditation does is that you close your eyes and you start identifying those patterns of your thoughts, right? Because oftentimes we're not even putting much effort or much thought into our thoughts because we're so engaged in things, and so when you're anxious, when you're angry, when you're depressed, you are so caught up in your thoughts, you don't even realize you're caught up in your thoughts. And what meditation does is help you notice those thoughts and then go back to what you're doing, back to the present moment. Over time, you start building this habit of dissociating your thoughts from what is real. So you start understanding your thoughts are not reality. They're just versions of whatever it is you're thinking that you've made up. And that's powerful because when you're angry or anxious, you take those thoughts as truth. Like you think that whatever you're thinking is true, and it's not. So meditation gives you the power to dissociate between those thoughts and between what is real. That's so powerful. And I think that is the real thing about meditation, is that when you start realizing the difference between being a thought and between what is real. Yeah.
We were supposed to start with this episode with what are the words that brought you here? But I think if we are able to identify a word that encapsulates what you just said, what would that sort of word be in a sense?
Impermanence.
Impermanence. You got to explain that word to me. Go.
All right.
Okay, what does it mean?
Impermanence is a very, very popular notion in Buddhism, which means that everything in life is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. Things just come and go. And that is the natural flow of the universe. So, for example, if you're going through a period of grief or depression, the notion of impermanence can help you get through because you understand that whatever you're experiencing is not permanent. It will eventually subside, as does everything else in the universe. And eventually things are going to change and you're going to experience happiness, right? Yeah.
If you go onto the Soulwidth website, and this isn't supposed to be a plug, but it is a plug, I guess. You go into the Soulwidth website and you actually get an error on your page.
Yeah.
There will be a statement that says, "This too shall pass."
Yeah. 100%. It's one of my favorite quotes.
Yeah. I love that statement. And that statement has got me through. I only really discovered that statement like a few years ago. And that statement has assisted with me going through the ups, going through the downs, going through the greats, going through, the gooey, sticky parts, the stuff that you just want to forget. And it is absolutely it's mind-boggling that we can have a conscious mind, okay, and we can be so intelligent to a point, yet we now essence believe, or maybe we want to believe that things are forever.
We want to believe that.
We want to believe that, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't you think that is strange how we want to believe? Because I know personally for me, when something's good, I like it to stay that way. And then I have to remind myself that this too shall pass.
And you know what? That just sets you up for suffering, because that in Buddhism, they teach that attachment is the source of all suffering, right? So when you want things to last forever, essentially you're just becoming more and more attached to that thing. And inevitably, that's going to lead to more suffering in your life. So the basic core notion of Buddhism is that the main reason we suffer is because we're attached to things and we have to eventually detach from them. And that is suffering in a nutshell.
One of the main books for Soulwidth is Viktor E. Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Great book.
Yeah. It's an amazing book. I've read that book about 4 or 5 times. It's part of the Soulwidth sort of philosophy. That reading that book and learning about suffering was life-changing for me, because for me, I always attempted to push suffering away. Even recently, in living in some sort of, chaotic world, when I'm trying to build a business, I'm trying to, work and have a family and everything, and just seemed like there was so much chaos, and I tried to push the chaos away. And it wasn't until I realized that I needed to embrace the chaos. If you have a student who comes to you and they are suffering, what tools, what do you say? How do you, there's no way to rip them out of it. They're the only person who can take themselves out of it. But in terms of sitting in it, what can you suggest? Meditation is great, but if they're trying to start off with meditation and they find it frustrating like I did, what's some things that they can do to make it a little bit easier for them, or at least get them on the path to thinking, okay, I can do this?
Right. So yeah, you're right. Meditation is a great tool, but when you're going through real rough times of suffering, and by the way, I've been through it the last, a few months ago, and it sucks, right? The last thing you want to do is sit down and meditate. because the thought of having thoughts is scary, right? You don't want to think about anything. So what people naturally do is that they just go to social media, they play video games, they take drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, because they don't want to be part of it at all. It's like a mask. So yeah, I totally get that. Meditation is so helpful during those times, but I'm also very understanding that it's so hard to get into when you're going through tough times. So I'd say a very positive practice the first one would be gratitude. So gratitude could be one of the most important practices you could ever introduce into your life. It doesn't take much. It doesn't have to involve meditation. It can involve journaling, and journaling is the next one as well. So you just sit down, see yourself, and start small, because one of the books I love and I plug a lot is Atomic Habits, right? You read it?
Yeah.
Great book.
I get the emails.
You get James Clear. He's got great emails. And he talks a lot about, as you know, starting very, very small, right? Which is what atomic means, right? Something small, but with a lot of impact. So you start very small, and with journaling as well. Just start with, like, when I was going through grief, I just started very small, 3-minute journals, built it up every few days by a minute, and journaled what I'm grateful for, journaled what I'm aware of, what's going through my life, recognizing patterns, but writing all about these things has helped a lot. So I'd say journaling is such an underestimated practice, but gratitude can completely shift your mindset. So if you're going through a very bad time, especially a period of depression, all you have to do, and I'm not a big believer in quantity when it comes to gratitude, I'm a big believer in quality. So what I like to do is I like to just close my eyes and think of a person, for example, in my life, for which I am so grateful. And we take people in our lives for granted, right? There are so many people in my life that I barely even call them, but I'm so grateful to have them in my life. Even just thinking of them now gives me shivers. And there are things in our lives that we can be grateful for: a roof, fridge, there are people out there who are homeless. They don't have any of those. So, just recognizing it, but really soaking it in, not just ticking it off, like soaking it, really taking a moment to visualize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a moment a few nights ago where I had a friend who asked me, how's your week been? And I replied something on the lines of, my week has been great, but my day has been shit house. And then I kind of thought about that. And then what I did then, I actually did that exercise, and I was just grateful just for having food. I was grateful for having children. I was grateful for the people who love me and also hate my guts. I was grateful for having a roof over my head. Like, I'm really grateful, especially with this weather. I'm really grateful for having a roof over my head. And, there was a gentle reminder that day, because I walked past someone and they were sleeping on the side of the road in this like little, I don't know, like a little hutch to go into a business. And, just that was powerful enough to make me even forget. Like, I totally forgot that I was having those feelings until, we were having this conversation just now. And it works really, really well. Do you think that, like, with the journaling, I often wonder about this, because I know that I write a lot, but I know that, I started journaling when I was like 15.
Wow.
Okay. And now my journals have now sort of transformed into me taking my feelings, taking my emotions, taking my experiences, and then I sort of weave them into a story, because I've just had that capacity to, being as someone who's been writing for so long. That is what I do with my journals. What do you do with your journals afterwards? Do you tell people to read them? What do you tell your students to do with them? Is it something that you just write and forget?
That's a good question. I think it's a very personal thing. Each answer would resonate with a different person in a different way. I personally don't do much. I will say I usually write them on my laptop, because my handwriting is unbearable. So I'll journal on my laptop and I'll save them into a file, and I'll just save them there. I value the act of journaling. I think I get a lot out of the actual act of it in the moment, but there's also some value into, 2 years down the track, looking back and reading those journals and thinking to yourself, wow, I've come such a long way. Or wow, I was really thinking that. I can't believe it, stuff like that.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. Like, that actually has triggered a memory of mine. Like, all of my very, very old journals, like, they're very hidden away. Like, I've deliberately placed them in a spot in my garage where I don't see them.
Wow.
Because I go through them and there was just a lot of negativity, and I felt like it was not getting me in a space of positivity. There is that act of journaling where you are, what I was doing in terms of mind dumping in a way that was sort of like a woe me kind of story. Are there aspects that you recommend people to journal about in terms of, I mean, you've said gratitude, and that's one thing, but what should they be journaling about besides gratitude? Because gratitude just seems like, okay, so everyone's throwing around gratitude. Everyone's throwing in that space, you know. I talk about it to people and, you know, I kind of feel like they look at me like I'm made of glass and they sort of see through me in a sense. You know, when you say it, I really resonate with it and I can connect with it. But for me, I've been on that other end where you do journal in a negative way that actually makes things, not, I wouldn't say worse, but it doesn't really make it better.
No.
So I've seen that journals out there that have sort of prompts and things like that.
Yeah.
So is there other things that you can do? I mean, is there a question that you ask at the start of it, or what can you do to make sure that you don't go in that space where you start blaming all your problems on everyone else and you start feeling sorry for yourself and you get yourself into a space where, you know, you turn around and say, oh, journaling is just full bullshit.
I think it depends on what prompts you set up, and I think it depends on setting up the right direction, okay, and what kind of journaling you want to do.
Yeah.
So I'd say fundamentally, I'd ask myself to begin with, how am I feeling right now? And I'll just talk a little bit or write a little bit about how I'm feeling, because oftentimes
that's a good one. That's a good one to start. How am I feeling?
Start, and that can lead to so many different avenues, right? So how am I feeling? You can talk about, because again, we suppress our feelings, especially us men, right? We don't really talk about how we feel. We hold it in.
I hate talking about how I feel. Like I've been on a bit of a roller coaster for the last 6 months. And I recently, just last week, spoke to a friend and she was like, oh, I haven't spoken to you in ages. I was like, yeah, I know. And then I told her about my life for the last 6 months. She was just like, why didn't you call me? And I was just
why do you hate talking about how you feel, if I may ask?
I hate talking about how I feel because maybe it feels like that journal entry that I was just talking to you about. Like it feels like I'm saying it and I'm putting it out there for some sort of attention or maybe to get some, you know, pity. And I don't want to be like that. I would rather not have that communication.
You know, that resonates with me so much because I'm exactly the same. I hate talking about how I feel. And part of it is, again, because I don't want to be that person, but I also don't want to burden other people with my problems. So I think there's that as well for me. So I totally get where you're coming from. And I think it's not just us. I think a lot of men are like that. I think we just carry a lot on our shoulders and we feel on a subconscious level that we have to take a lot on and that we just don't complain, just deal with it. Whereas women are way more comfortable talking about their feelings and something.
Some of them are. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about all of them.
I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying. No, but there are differences. There are different, but I think that generally they're just a little more comfortable talking about it. Like, you're right, not all. But back to journaling, back to prompts, right? I'd say, you know, just starting off with talking about your feelings. You're not writing it for anyone but yourself. So it doesn't really matter which direction you go down. You're doing it because you're doing it as an outlet. You just need something to talk about. So that would be the first thing. And then what can I do about it? Okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling crap. This person hurt my feelings, whatever's going on. What can I do about it now? Okay, maybe I need to go get a massage. Maybe I need to watch something on TV. Whatever it is, what do I need to do? And then what am I looking forward to? That will be the third prompt. What am I excited about tomorrow or later on today? What excites me? And I think that can shift you into a more grateful mindset, because you can't feel grateful and bad at the same time. So if you can now start thinking in a more grateful sense, then it could completely shift your mindset for sure. I was reading somewhere interesting that mindsets and emotions only last 7 minutes at a time, right? So
say that again.
So your emotions, how you feel, like if you're anxious, angry, depressed, it only lasts for 7 minutes until it moves on to the next emotion, right? So if you're still feeling like that by the end of the 7 minutes, if you're still anxious or depressed, you'll just feel depressed and anxious for another 7 minutes, and that can carry on for a whole day. But if within that window, you start feeling a little different, like more positive, optimistic, then it'll shift you to another mindset for the next 7 minutes after that. It's like jumping on different lily pads as a frog. So you want to jump on the green ones, not the red ones. And that's a lady by the name of Michelle Beardon. She came up with that theory. So she's a psychologist. So yeah.
Yeah, that actually sounds really good. That sounds really, really helpful. So
Yeah.
if you are having a shit day,
yeah,
it could take you 7 minutes to turn it around.
100%. So you should seize that opportunity to just like, okay, what am I going to do now that can shift my mindset for after those 7 minutes are over? And then keep doing what I'm doing, and then it'll just change. Then I can just keep leaping on that green lily pad throughout the day.
I love that. Like something, you record these podcasts and you sort of come in here with some sort of plan and things like that. And then sort of like, we had a bit of a brief beforehand, but like that has actually blown my mind to think that little nugget there, because that's what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create just like little nuggets. I don't want people to think that a textbook is the answer. Everything needs to come in sort of small doses and little changes that you make and sort of like, as we said at the start, the words that sort of brought you here, just a word. But what you have just said about 7 minutes to sort of transform the way that you feel, that is the sort of intelligence that, I know that I'm going to walk away from this podcast thinking that, okay, I'm going to start implementing that, because I can get on a train and I can, go to a certain spot and, I guess I'm very good at it. If something's going shit in, at the back of the stage, then I know the show is going to keep on going on. And I do that. I have a smile and no one will know that I'm fucking feeling horrible inside. I'm really good at doing that. But that little technique would be able to, I think that's going to change my life. And I hope that it actually changes other people's lives out there as well.
And it's good to know. It's just a good fundamental understanding of just to know that, you know what I mean? And then what do you do? Like, how do you shift your mindset within that 7 minute period? So again, journaling is one way to go about it. But meditation, I find that even if you can meditate for 10 minutes, just close your eyes and focus on your breath 10 minutes, that can be enough to just bring you into a place of equanimity and more control over yourself.
When I meditate and I feel shit beforehand and I'm forcing myself to meditate, there is something that occurs when I reopen my eyes after I have, hit that time. And I don't know if it happens to you or happens to anyone else who's listening, where I open my eyes and it feels like I'm looking at a new world.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is? Because I have tried to, like, when I do it, it's astonishing to me. Like it's like I close my eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, to start off with. So I have the same picture when I reopen my eyes. That picture within itself, it doesn't look the same. But I think it doesn't look the same because I'm not attaching the negative emotions to it.
Well, the negative emotions don't necessarily have to be attached to it specifically. They could just be creating a cloud or noise that can be altering your vision of it, right? So so when you close your eyes and you're meditating for however long you choose to meditate, what you're essentially doing is that you're clearing your mind, right? You're becoming less involved in your thoughts. But then when you open your eyes, you're in a more present state, which is where you weren't before. So you weren't present. Your mind was all over the place. And you're now seeing the world from the view of someone who is present. And it's a way more beautiful way to look at the world. And I think that is testament to how powerful meditation can be.
Wow.
The Power of Now. Another great book I recommend. Yeah.
I was given that book a long time ago by a friend and I was supposed to give it back to her. I never did. Sorry about that, Anne. So I'll give it back to you one day. I actually read it recently. And
it's a heavy book. Like it
is.
Yeah.
It's a heavy book, but I can see why it catapulted. I think there was another book before that, but I don't know.
A New Earth.
Yeah.
Or was that after?
Yeah, maybe it was after.
Yeah.
But I can see how that book, opened a lot of doors for people to walk in and say, okay, yeah, cool. This whole being present stuff actually isn't that bad. Because for someone who jumps in feeling, as I do, frustrated, angry, and then I jump out 10 minutes later and everything just looks brand new. That within itself, it's worth more than the 10 minutes that I give it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. No doubt. I couldn't have said it better.
So how do people get in touch with you for coaching on meditation and other services that you do? Because you deliver your services it's Enso meditation.
Yeah.
Yep. So Enso meditation is where it's at, and it is on the app Insight Timer.
So, yeah, I happen to teach on Insight Timer, which is not affiliated with Enso at all.
So they're separate, aren't they?
Separate entities, but Insight Timer is a fantastic app, and I'd recommend it for anyone. This isn't even a plug. This is just something that is a tool that could benefit people. It's fantastic because it has a bell that you can use to meditate at your own time. You can also add sound effects to the timer, and has such a range of teachers, 18,000 teachers on there with 30 million students. So a lot of people use Insight Timer. It's a fantastic resource. Some of the best teachers in the world, some of the teachers that I've admired and that have shaped me as a coach are on there. Like,
can you talk about that for a second? Because I know that was one of the questions that I wrote down about, how you ended up coming into this space as a meditation coach. Who inspired you and gave you the sort of, I guess, the confidence or, the vision that you could do this yourself?
Me. Truthfully, I inspired myself because I actually went out and did it and realized the effects. But then I had to learn from other people. There's some amazing teachers out there. There's David G, who is a student of Deepak Chopra. He's not only has the nicest meditation voice, but he is so knowledgeable. He's written a few books about meditation, the art of meditation, and a few others. But he is such an insightful teacher, knows so much. He's been through such a journey. He's almost like he looks like Father Christmas, like this wise guru. So I've learned a lot from David G. I've learned a lot from other teachers, like Sam Harris is another one. He's got an app called Waking Up. There's Sarah Blondin on Insight Timer. She's a fantastic teacher. And Dan Harris, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's not a teacher, but he really brought the benefits of meditation. He used to be an ABC reporter, and he had a panic attack on air live. And that prompted him to delve into meditation.
Have you ever had a panic attack?
I have. Yeah. Luckily not on air, but yeah.
I had one, and I thought that I was not dying, but it was very, very strange because, I was working in an area where it was high stress management, where you would yell and things like that. And I didn't even I thought that it was my fault. I thought that, I got upset and I walked out of work and I started to feel the camera's gone there. It's all right. Not about me, but yeah, camera's gone.
It's okay.
There we go. Cool. Yeah. And then I immediately thought that I had done something wrong. And it wasn't until later that I actually spoke to other managers, and they just detailed and said to me, no, you had a panic attack.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were telling me how they had a heart attack 6 months ago. Didn't know that he was having a heart attack, kept on driving, and almost drove all the way home from Anglesea to past Little River. And that is
scary.
That's about a 40-minute drive. And he was having a heart attack the whole time and didn't know. The first thing that I said to him is, think that your body can take a lot of pain. And he was like,
yeah,
he just nodded. And
if that's not a sign, then that he could take a lot of pain, then I don't know what is. That's incredible.
Because I was trying to talk him into getting into meditation and ocean dips in the morning and things like that. But
those are great.
He wasn't necessarily going. I think I would need to hold his hand to actually get in there. An old-fashioned guy. With the meditation, what students have you had that have come to you and said, hey, I was doing this and then I started meditating and then this happened, and it's just it's transformed my life?
Wow. Well, you asked me about people who've inspired me throughout my journey, and my students are probably the most inspirational people I've met, because they have, firstly, to have an open mind to it in the first place. That sets you apart from such a big part of the population. to want to attempt that, and not only that, but to recognize how far they've come and to just see their story, like, going from feeling disempowered, feeling like they doubt themselves, to feeling lonely, to knowing and having the tools to deal with these circumstances, to me is inspiring. And I get that daily. I get so many students of so many testimonials claiming that it's changed their lives. I once sadly had a student on her deathbed 3 years ago who was she was dying from cancer, and she kept listening to my meditations until the moment that she died. So it helped her. And I know that because her daughter reached out to me. She's from the UK and told me that. So because I have healing meditations, so she kept listening to that. And, I guess it helped her cope with pain of cancer and with the inevitable reality of her demise, So that was, that was in many ways inspiring, and God bless her. It was, yeah.
I don't know how to follow up with that question. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, she led a great life, and she was an inspiring figure. And I did a nice prayer and meditation session in honor of her. And look, it's life,
As you said, the word that we started off with, what was that word again? Word that brought you here?
Yeah. Passion, right? And
that nothing lasts forever.
Yes. Nothing lasts forever. Exactly.
Yeah.
Enso, that's basically the basic concept of my brand.
Yeah. Tell us about Enso. Tell us about what you do, your services.
Okay, so I'll first tell you what an Enso is, because a lot of people are like, what is an Enso? So an Enso is like a circle that is drawn with one brush stroke. So it looks incomplete and represents the impermanence of life, which is what we talked about before, how everything eventually comes to an end. But it also represents the idea that there is a lot of beauty and uniqueness in imperfection. But when it's not necessarily a perfect circle or a complete circle, it actually makes it more beautiful, which ties into one of my favorite words in Japanese, which means wabi-sabi, which means beauty and imperfection. And I love that word because I think the most beautiful things in the world are the ones that are asymmetrical and imperfect. It's just a nice approach to have in life in general. And that's basically a philosophy that I've adopted since meditating. And that's what Enso is all about, just helping you realize your imperfections, being proud of them and understanding them. So we do what we like to do is introduce meditation to everyday people who've never meditated before, people who've never actually thought of meditate, people who think they suck at meditating, like basically everyone I speak to almost, and making it accessible, user-friendly. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people just think of, and I also want to break this this stereotype. People think that in order for me to meditate, I need to be like a hippie who, meditates on the beach, or a cave dweller, or someone who lives in the forest. You don't have to be any of those. You can just be a normal person. You can be a corporate, you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, and you can meditate. You can just bring it to your day-to-day life. You don't need to change.
I've been trying to get my girlfriend to meditate, and her response is constantly, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. No,
Well, she says that because she has an idea of what meditation is like, and she puts that expectation to achieve that sort of concept. And yeah, of course, if I'm thinking of something that seems unattainable, I'm going to say I can't do it. But if I have a very basic understanding of what it is, and understand that it's simple, and start very, very small, and understand that you can't really fail at meditating. There's no such thing as failing at meditating, so you can. Then it's more accessible than she may think to approach it.
Would you think that like starting off with even something like 1 minute, and then the next day 2 minutes, and then...
That's legitimately what I tell my students or newcomers. Start with 1 minute. Start with 30 seconds a day. You know what? Don't even start. Just like start with finding a seat, sitting there, and then getting up. Like just start. You know what I mean? And work it up every week. You can do 30 seconds a day for a whole week, and then bring it up by another 30 seconds next week. So it's effectively a minute. The point is not to like be an expert immediately. The point is to just adopt it as a lifelong habit so that you can eventually reap the benefits of it. Because meditation is useless. It's like, I love, drawing parallels to exercising at the gym. If you do it regularly, you'll reap the rewards. If you do it once a week or here and there, you're not going to really see much results. So yeah, the most important thing about meditating is adopting it as a regular practice. And you start very absurdly, insanely small and build your way up. I can't even emphasize how important that is.
So in this world where we've got so many distractions, where, in high pressure situations. We're in a space, I guess, well, more than, I don't know about other sectors of the world, but I guess in Australia, the price of living has gone up, price of food has gone up, and we are in this state of sort of flux where everyone is constantly just bringing up, the rising cost of this and the rising cost of that, and you turn on the news. I try and get as much news as I can. Like I have my smart speakers on every morning, but I always find myself switching them off because I can't really take it. And in this world where there is, there's so many challenges, why do you think that there are people who think that meditation is just a load of shit?
I'll tell you why. It's a great question as well. I love it because the people want quick fixes, unfortunately. People want to take a pill and just feel like they can see the world differently, feel calm, feel everything. And while some people need to, like if you have ADHD, you need to, right? But the average person who doesn't have ADHD just wants a quick fix. They can't comprehend that if you treat it with patience and care, it'll change your life. Because we're always looking for, the idea of dedicating yourself to something slowly is almost an abandoned concept these days. People aren't really doing that anymore. So, and you know what? It seems very far-fetched. It seems like such a hard thing to achieve because we are inundated with the news, with all this negativity, with all this noise and crap that's surrounding us. It seems impossible. So what I always suggest to students is when you start your day, the last thing you should ever do for the first half hour is look at the news. The last thing in the world that you should do. Like that should be your last priority. First 30 minutes of your day dictate how the rest of your day is going to be, right? So if you start your day, you wake up, you look at Instagram or YouTube and you're catching the news, what you're doing is you're reacting to what you're looking at, right? So
you're waking up with a reaction.
Exactly. And you're constantly reacting to this bit of news and that, and things are changing really fast in today's world. So for the first few minutes of your day, you're reacting. So what that does is create a reactive mindset, right? So for the rest of your day now, you're going to react to shit. If someone cuts you in traffic and calls you a son of a bitch, you're going to react. If someone says to you, you're this or that, you're going to react. If your dog is not listening to you, you're going to react. You're always going to be reactive, right? And which is such a disempowering way to live.
It is.
So if you start your day, right, you don't look at the news, you don't look at your phone, you don't look at social media. You can look at your phone for Insight Timer or meditations. I'm serious.
Yeah, just turn it on.
As a tool.
Yeah.
But you use it, you start your day meditating, journaling, going for a walk, doing 10 minutes of yoga, whatever, an hour of yoga. You start your day being proactive, you acquire a proactive mindset for the rest of your day. Remember, the first 30 minutes will dictate the rest of your day. So if you start your first 30 minutes being proactive, your whole day is going to be proactive. You're going to react less. People will say whatever they want to you. You're just going to brush it off, not care. You're going to feel empowered. You're going to feel strong. You're going to feel smarter. You're going to feel just more organized. Everything is going to come to place better. It's hard though. It's hard. And even I fall for that trap, especially when I was going through depression. Like you couldn't be stuffed. The last thing you want to do is not look at your phone. But if you can do it, I encourage all your listeners, try it. First 30 minutes of your day, just meditate and maybe journal, go for a walk, do something for yourself. And even if you're having a cup of tea, just don't watch anything, don't read anything. Just sit there and enjoy your tea. And your whole day will change. You'll see.
Yeah. Look, I used to be absolutely obsessed with social media, and it was to the point where I didn't even realize that I was obsessed with it. Waking up in the morning and I'd be checking social media straight away, going to bed at night. And I used to spend almost 2 hours a day just on social media. And it is probably no coincidence that I felt like shit about myself.
Yeah.
And I constantly was in a circle mind of tearing myself down, putting myself up, tearing myself down, putting myself up. And I think that putting myself up was a little bit, I think that it was all sort of superficial because it wasn't authentic, This actually kind of locks in with the journaling as well that we were saying before. Do you think it is helpful to go through in that sort of state of, flow about planning and things like that in terms of, if we were to look at our lives now, we shouldn't be bullshitting and saying, that we like something that we don't.
Mm.
You know, we're always wanting to improve. How do we try and turn that into something that is more positive and it's not in the space like I was doing with that journaling, with that journal dumping, where I was blaming other people, or I was saying that. I remember reading a whole bunch of times on a whole bunch of pages that there would be this sort of like really open-ended finish where there was no conclusion, and it seemed like the problem was just going to keep on seeping. Is there any advantages to taking negativity like I was creating and turning that into motivation?
Yeah, I think it's all about reframing your mind and your paradigm. So taking that negativity, but understanding what it actually means and understanding what it stands for, and not taking it at face value. A lot of people become immersed in the negativity. They associate themselves with the negativity.
That's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's what I was doing. I was associating the negativity with Luke JJ.
And that's why meditation,
But there is, like, I don't necessarily now, you know, years later, I don't have answers. Like, I don't necessarily have answers. Like, if I was to look back on all those journal prompts and everything like that, I look at them and I kind of think to myself, so unnecessary.
What the journal prompts were unnecessary, or the attitude?
The attitude.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the attitude that I brought to the pages, the attitude that I brought to, you know, even meditating when I started meditating, thinking that things had to be perfect. And, you know, we have this innate desire to want to be better.
And to always have to have answers.
And to always...
You don't always have to have the answers.
And I think that's a big takeaway.
It is.
Yeah, we've done some pretty good stuff.
I'm enjoying this.
Yeah,
I could do this all day.
This is great.
We should do an 8-hour podcast sometime.
8 hours.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, I'm up for that.
Yeah.
Probably need some coffee and some smoke, but that's okay. We
yeah.
can do that. Okay. So what I wanted to just ask you now, because we're going to be wrapping this up probably in another, 5-10 minutes and finish up with the our question for the wrap up, the same question that we asked, the closing question. What do you got happening in the future?
Okay, so I'm working on a course. Okay, so it's a using meditation to unlock superpowers. We all have superpowers. We all have abilities, unique abilities that we, in many cases, don't even recognize yet. Being a comic book fan, I really, I just love delving into that. And the idea of unlocking those superpowers resonates with me a lot. So I'm working on a course that helps people unlock that. Also, more workshops and just to expand Enso a little bit more, bring it out and spread it more to Melbourne, to Australia.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's one step at a time.
So you're going to be focusing on Australia, you're going to be focusing on Melbourne. Do you have any retreats that you want to go on or anything like that you might be able to share? Maybe even nothing to do with you, but something that you think that, people might like.
There are retreats in Victoria. There's a SIBA retreat in Gippsland, which is a retreat I recommend. I don't know if they're still doing them at the moment. Fantastic place to go on a retreat. It's a Buddhist retreat. And I'm planning on going on a retreat sometime in the coming 2 months, just a meditation retreat in Thailand. So that'll be nice.
The reason I asked that is because when was the last time you did an ocean dip, morning ocean dip?
I don't remember. I don't think I have any time in the last 4 years.
Well, I'm inviting you to come back next time in the morning. I usually get up at 5:30.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm out the door at 6. Sometimes I'm out the door at 7, depends how much I procrastinate. And then we go out to the water with my dog. Sometimes I'm in the water, sometimes I'm not. Most of the time, like this morning, I was not. But I have been getting in there recently, and there is nothing more crazy, exhilarating. Look, there's people who go down there and do the morning dips who sort of slowly pace themselves into the water, jump and make sure it doesn't hit their belly button, because that's where it gets sensitive. But I'm not that type of person. I like to grab my dog, show him a stick, throw the stick out and see who can get the stick first. So we run in together, and there's something very powerful about that. And I think I'm going to invite you to do that with me next time. And then after that, we will record another podcast and we can talk about ocean dips and see what you think about that.
I'd love that. Challenge accepted.
There
It's
you
actually
go.
one of my weaknesses in life, cold showers and stuff like that.
Yeah, man, I can't do cold showers. I learned about cold showers a few years ago from a mate, Nick Brax, who also is a wellness advocate.
Mm.
And I remember I was recording a podcast for a media agency that I was working with, and recording that podcast, I was asking him, how do you look after yourself? And he was adamant about cold showers. I've tried them. I'm too weak for them so far. But
Yeah.
I think if I was to just do a dip, like just drop myself, that would be fine. But if I need to sort of stand there, it
Sucks. Yeah, just the splashing. It's not a calming experience. And
I think the dip is so much better. So I think,
how do you feel after a dip? Do you feel...
you know what, it's very similar to what I was explaining before about how sometimes I open my eyes with meditation, I just see a new world.
Wow.
The only difference is that when I swim, I can't wear glasses. I come out of the water and everything's just as blurry as it was before. Okay, so we're going to wrap up with our closing question here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is the question that we revolve around Soulwidth and abundance intelligence. For you, is abundance?
For me, abundance is a mindset. Is a mindset. It's how you view the world, and it's a way of going about life. So it's viewing the world from a place of growth, from a place of wanting to grow, from a place of seeing the growth in others and wanting others to grow as well, not just yourself.
Yeah.
And to me, that's such a transformative way to look at the world, because
I love that about not just wanting you to grow, but wanting others to grow as well.
100%.
That is fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
You can swear on this podcast too. Isn't it great?
So liberating.
Swearing for me is just like a push-up. I feel great afterwards. And of course, final question, what does intelligence manifest for you in your space of meditation, being a meditation coach? So the reason we ask this is, like, I really have valued in the last, 10 years, reading, podcasts, learning. And for me, intelligence of understanding something has really transformed the way that I look at things. So for you, if you're learning about meditation and you're teaching it yourself, how does intelligence for you manifest this world of meditation that you have created, that it touches?
I love that.
Yeah.
Because when I think of intelligence, I think of one word, and that is curiosity, right? So people curious, in my opinion, are just at a more advantageous position when it comes to intelligence. Having this curiosity encourages you to learn and explore the world more. And what meditation on a very subtle, unconscious level teaches you is the beginner's mindset, right? So everything you approach as a blank canvas, you approach everything as a beginner. And when you do that, you become more curious about things, you become more willing to learn, you become more open to other people's ideologies. You may not agree with them, but you will at least understand where they're coming from. You become more empathetic. And I think that empathy helps a lot in terms of empathy is a form of intelligence that it's a muscle that you exercise through meditation. Seeing other people's perspectives helps you absorb their opinions more, absorb their philosophies better, and therefore you grow more as a person. So yeah, I'd say curiosity is such an important thing, and you can harness that through meditation and through just having a beginner's mindset, really.
Okay, I love that. There were a few key takeaways from today's podcast. We had the 7 seconds that can change your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we had two more. What were the other two? Do you remember the other two?
7 minutes that can change your life.
7 minutes, sorry, not 7 seconds. I was thinking of the 7-second Suns, Phoenix Suns that used to score in 7 seconds.
Oh, yeah, I remember those. The Anthony days, yeah.
Yeah. So you get 7 minutes.
Okay, 7 minutes. I'd say, look, I think that we covered so many points, but I'd say, just the impermanence, the concept of impermanence, and waking up with a proactive mindset as opposed to a reactive mindset is also very important,
I love it. You got a better memory than me. I got to write this stuff down.
No, look, I'm happy to come back and do it again. Talk about it again.
We're going to get you in the ocean, baby. We're going to get you in the ocean.
I'd love that.
Okay, this has been another episode for Soulwidth. Make sure you go to soulwidth.com and support our cause. Learn about our books, get our products. Wise, just listen to the podcast and maybe you might walk away and realize that 7 minutes can change your life. My name is Luke JJ. Thank you to Alex. Check him out on Insight Timer.
Yep.
And Enso. soulwithmeditation.com.au. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.